Till now we have seen what are variables in Java. Today we are going to see what are data types in Java, what are the uses of data types and why we should use data types. Before starting, like the video and subscribe the channel, and welcome back to Code with Akhil. Let's start with our topic. So firstly, what are data types? Java has inbuilt data types in it which are available to the user to store the data. So let us suppose consider this is our database and we want to store particular data within this database, and we have different kinds of data, like suppose we have integer data 1 2 3 or alphabets data like A B C. There are different data in it. So to store these different data we use different data types for it. Data types in Java are of two types. One is primitive and another one is non-primitive. So today we are going to discuss about the primitive, and let us just ignore non-primitive for some time. So what is primitive? So primitive is the tool which we use to work with the data types. Simply it is the tool which we use to work with the data types. Okay. Again, this primitive is categorized into four types, that is integer, float, character and boolean. When we want to store the negative range to positive range values or the numbers, then we will be using integer data type. Whenever we want to store the point values or the decimal values like 12.6 or 13.1, then we will be using float data type. When we want to work with the constant values or the alphabets like A, B, C and K, then we will choose, or the values are stored in character data type. Simply we can call it as char also. When you want to work with the conditional statements like true or false, like suppose for example when you want to tell the particular statement is true or the particular statement is false, then we will be choosing, or the values are stored under boolean data type. Integer is also subcategorized into four types, that is integer, short int, long int and byte. And when we go with integer, it stores the values of different sizes and it can store values up to 4 bytes in it. The values which are of size 4 bytes are stored in the integer data type. Again, integers may be short integer or the long integer, and to store short integers or the smaller values we use short int. That can store up to 2 byte values. And when we go with long integer, it can store the bigger values, or the value can be up to 8 bytes. That is 8 bytes values are stored in the long integer. We actually use byte integer to store 1 byte values or the small 1 byte values. You may also get a doubt of what is the difference between a short integer and byte integer, and you may see a common similarity that they both are used to store small values. But when we go deep into it, short integer is of 2 bytes but byte is of only 1 byte. For example, let us consider this as short integer, this has 1 byte and this has another byte, but in case of byte it is of only one value till now. So if we try to store one value in it, it is suitable for it, but when we store the same one value in it, the other box will be left over empty, which leads to memory wastage or leakage of the memory. So this is the main reason we use a byte integer here. If you want to declare integer variables, we can declare it as int num is equals to 9, byte by is equals to 127, short sh equals to 120 something, and long L is equals to 58029L. So you can see L is written at the end of the numbers because it defines the long integer, or that tells the program that long integer value is stored. Tells the program it is the long integer value and store it under long integer only. Float integer. The float integer is again of two types, that is float and double. When we go with float, the float is of 4 bytes. And when we compare with other languages like C or Python, the float value is always default in it. But when we come to Java programming, double is the value which is default in it. Other programming languages, and double is of 8 bytes. Float is good when we have a precise value or the limited value like 126.8762. At this time the float is very good for it or suitable for it. But when we go to bigger values or the scientific calculations, when we got numerous values or the values after decimal increases, then it is better to use a double data type only. If you want to define the float variable, we can type as double num equals to 6.2 and float num is equals to 6.2 f. At last we can see f. We use this f to represent the float data type. If you directly write the float value, that is float num is equals to 6.2, it shows the error because double data type is default in Java programming. So to execute without the error, we use f at a float data types. And finally there are character data type and boolean data type. For character, in other programming languages character have less bits, but in Java it has 2 bytes or 16 bits. So the character in Java programming uses a Unicode to store the values up to 2 bytes. But when we compare with C and Python languages, it gives the character only 1 byte memory to store the data. If you want to define character variable, we use char c is equals to single quote a, and here you may observe that I have used a single quotes for defining the character. It is necessary to use the single quote to define the character, otherwise it may leads to error. And finally boolean data type. If you want to work with conditional statements like true or false, then we will be going with the boolean data type. In other programming languages they may use binary bits, that is 0 and 1. 0 defines the false value and 1 defines the true value. But in Java we are not going to follow this. We are going to follow only words, that is true or false. If you want to declare boolean variable, then we can write boolean b is equals to true. And that is for today. Like the video and subscribe the channel.